Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing something a little different but still in the mythological realm. We're talking about Koschei the Deathless, the famous Russian fairy tale, so if that interests you while you watch me do this really fun makeup look, please keep watching. Alright y'all, let's talk about Koschei the Deathless while I do this makeup look. I'm thinking something Twiggy inspired but with red, so let's get into it. I already primed my face before I started filming with the Essence Jelly Grip Hydrating Primer. This stuff rules. So Koschei the Deathless is not actually a mythological figure, but I still wanted to talk about him because he is tied to Velez, which I will get in later. But Koschei the Deathless is a character from Russian folktales, otherwise called skazki. So before I continue in this heat wave, I want you all to wear sunscreen. I put sunscreen on before I started my makeup. You all better be doing the same. Koschei is often depicted and painted as a very skinny, frail, emaciated old man. He's very skeletal, he's very gaunt, his fingers are bony and severe. Whenever I was researching this, the only thing that really came to mind was Withers from Baldur's Gate 3. Something really interesting to note when we're talking about his appearance is that none of the existing fairy tales actually describe his appearance. And in fact, I'll talk about this later, but he was actually described as an ogre in one account. Very much far removed from the realm of being a fragile, emaciated old man. As his name suggests, being Koschei the Deathless, he cannot die. So Koschei removed his soul from his body and hid it in a series of nested vessels, and it's exactly like what you're thinking. It is often likened to Russian nesting dolls or matryoshka. He put his soul inside a needle, but in order to get to this needle, somebody would have to bypass an egg inside of a duck, inside of a hare, all locked inside of an iron chest, buried beneath a green oak tree on a very distant remote island. I'm just really making sure I pack in my setting powder because it's going to be very hot today, and unfortunately I do have to leave the house. I also forgot to mention somehow that the only way to kill him is by breaking the needle. In order to kill him, you would have to find this island, dig up a chest, kill a hare after catching it, then repeat that with a duck, and then get its egg, and only then can you snap the needle. One telling of Koschei the Deathless story is called The Giant Who Had No Heart in His Body, or Ogre's Heart in the Egg. These stories would describe a villain who hides his essence somewhere beyond his body, like, within animals or objects that function like matryoshka. So the story's hero must destroy the heart in order to destroy the immortal foe. This is usually with the help of the villain's wife or a princess, and he is aided by animals in defeating the ogre. So while I'm waiting for my setting spray to dry, I just got done putting all my powders and stuff on. Some connect Koschei to Velez, like I mentioned earlier, and Velez is the Slavic god of magic, wealth, cattle, and the underworld. And the reason for this is because Velez was likely demonized during the Christianization of the Slavs. And now let's talk about Koschei's most infamous story, the death of Koschei the Deathless, collected by the folklorist Alexander Afanasyev in the 19th century. Packing on a little bit more under eye powder, not only for more brightening, but also to collect any fallout. And then we can get into this story. Real quick, y'all, this Morphe Bacon Set Quad, I have been loving it. I love the different colors in it. So I usually set my face with the light yellow, or I mix it with the pink, and then I go in strictly with that light pink all under my eyes, and it works really, really nicely. The story of the death of Koschei the Deathless follows a prince named Ivan Tsarovich, and Tsarovich just means the son of a czar. And his parents die, and his sisters marry off to various suitors. More on them later, mind you, because they are very fascinating and involve anthropomorphic characters, which are always fun. Anyways, Ivan eventually wanders out and meets a warrior queen named Marya Morevna, and he marries her. So Marya goes off to war and leaves Ivan at home, but she specifically warns him not to open a door leading to the castle dungeon. Do you think he listens? Absolutely not. He goes down there, he opens it up, and then he sees an emaciated Koschei the Deathless. So Koschei is chained up, emaciated, and you're about to find out that he was very thirsty. So you see this kind of creepy guy chained up in your wife's basement. Some tellings at this point describe him as an ogre, mind you. And he asks you for water. What do? Probably not get him the water, but Ivan did. He brought him not only like a glass of water, he brought him buckets of water. After drinking the water, all of Koschei's power and strength return to him. He breaks the chains and he disappears. Ivan chases after him, and he gets to the camp where Marya is at and frees her, and then they try to escape. But Koschei's horse is much faster. He catches up twice, and on the third attempt, Koschei loses patience, chops Ivan up, and throws him into a barrel and tosses his remains into a river. You know who else was apparently deathless, though? My boy Ivan. As I mentioned earlier, his sisters all had suitors, and they were anthropomorphized, and I want to talk about them for a bit because there's a few different ideas of what exactly they were. So in some versions, these suitors are wizards or anthropomorphizations of forces of nature like the wind, thunder, and rain, or natural features like the sun and the moon. Also, I'm aware that I look crazy. It'll all come together at the end. Trust the process. Also, if any of you know how to flatten out this packing brush again, I would love to hear it. My cat Cookie got into it and chewed on it, so now it's all frizzy. She does this with paintbrushes too. There is another variant that describes these suitors as powerful magicians who appear to court the sisters in raggedy disguises. Alexander Afanasyev, based on comparative analysis from other Slavic folklore traditions, stated that the eagle, the falcon, and the crow are connected to storm, rain, and wind. Anyways, how these guys helped Ivan is they warned him that Koschei has a magic horse and instruct him to visit the Baba Yaga, so he can get a horse too. If you know about Baba Yaga, she ain't just about to give this man a horse. She's gonna put him through the ringer. So Ivan starts his journey through the woods to find Baba Yaga's hut. You can't miss it. It's a thing that spins and it has chicken legs. He encountered animals on his journey though, and he has to help them to earn their trust before crossing a river of fire to get to Baba Yaga's hut. Once he gets there, this is where he gets his task. He is supposed to watch and care for Baba Yaga's herd of horses for 3 days, and he has to keep all of the horses safe. If a single one is lost or strays away from him, Baba Yaga will kill and eat him. Before I continue, I want to apologize for my variations in pronouncing Baba Yaga or Baba Yaga. I've heard both. Please let me know which one is correct in the comments. As you might expect, with any of Baba Yaga's tasks, it is a lot easier said than done. And the horses are constantly trying to run away from Ivan, scatter into the forest, and the only reason why Ivan even succeeds is because of the good relationship he built up with the animals he helped in the forest. So they return the favor by rounding up all the horses whenever they run away. I say this in every video where I mention Baba Yaga. I am so excited to do my video about her. She's coming up probably in a week or two. Still have to film it, but I want to give you guys a little break from Slavic mythology. I'm gonna jump into some Roman mythology and then I'll jump back, start with Baba Yaga. And I promise by then, I will have the correct pronunciation of her name down. So the animals help him round up all the horses. Baba Yaga can't tell the difference and she hands him the horse. So he gets the horse. He goes back and he says Marya, and the horse helps him defeat Koschei. This is where it gets a little bit confusing because the whole point is that he needs to destroy the needle inside the duck egg, right, and go to the island. Don't worry about it, the story ignores that. One version of the ending goes as such: after Ivan acquires the horse, it either tramples Koschei to death with its hooves, or it influences the opposing horse to drop Koschei to his death. Another ending states that after Ivan kills Koschei, he incinerates his corpse to make sure that he really stays dead, and that he will not be dealt with again. That's the end of the story, but I do want to talk about where he came from, because it's not like he just was pulled out of thin air. His character likely draws from pre-Christian Slavic beliefs, and as Slavic societies transitioned to Christianity, these mythological figures were adapted and reinterpreted through a new lens, often as villains or as the embodiments of evil. And the most plausible pagan ancestor, as I mentioned earlier, for Koschei the Deathless is Velez. So as I mentioned earlier, Velez is the god of the underworld, cattle, and wealth. As the horned god of the underworld who also transforms into a snake, it was pretty easy for the missionaries to repaint him as the equivalent of Satan. So Koschei has also had a lot of influence on pop culture, but at the risk of mentioning a certain franchise that I cannot stand, y'all know the one, I'm just gonna leave it at this. Beyond his, structural influence on the villain with a hidden soul trope and the whole matryoshka deal, Koschei also made it into high art a lot earlier. So for example, Nikolai Rimsky-Korsakov based his 1902 opera directly on Koschei. Additionally, the concept of Koschei's hidden soul inspired Igor Stravinsky's ballet The Firebird, which features him as a major antagonist. And I mentioned Baldur's Gate 3 earlier with Withers, but Dungeons and Dragons took inspiration from Koschei with the Lich, and the Lich is an undead sorcerer with his soul stored away. And that's the look. I did star eyebrows today and I got my lashes on. I just got to do the lips. So let's wrap up this video. So I mentioned this in my last video, but I'm actually learning Russian. So that way I'll be able to understand the literature better regarding a lot of the Slavic pantheon. Because like I said, a lot of this has been lost to Christianization. So trying to find like authentic text is hard if you do not know the language. This might turn into me learning a few other Slavic languages, just at least so I have some literacy in it, but Russian itself is pretty hard. And I'm struggling a tiny bit already, but I'm determined to do it. I think that knowing the main Slavic language will help a lot. At some point I do want to cover Perun and Belez and all that, but I want to give you guys a little bit of a break and talk about some Roman and Greek gods, maybe some Egyptian gods. I got a request on Instagram to do a figure from Chinese mythology that I'm really interested in. The list is always growing for me. And that's the look. I hope you guys enjoyed learning more about Koschei the Deathless. Like I said, it's a little bit off the beaten path of mythology, but it's still within that realm. And I would love to talk about more, fairy and folk tales, not just from Russia and Slavic countries, but from other countries too. So again, if you have any requests, please let me know. Also, did you know that a group of moths is called an eclipse? And that if you subscribe to this channel, you get to join my eclipse? I think that's a pretty good deal.